evening. Welcome to the Recycling Committee meeting, the first one. It's now 6:31 and we are beginning. First order of business is to the election of officers. So I'll entertain a motion for chair, please.
I would move Grace Levitt.
Second.
And I'm sorry, I'm doing minutes too. Karen, did you second?
Jess.
Okay. Are there any further nominations? I'll entertain a motion to end nominations.
So moved.
Any second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
She didn't vote on the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, okay, yeah, so you've closed nominations.
Yes,
yeah.
close
Okay,
nominations.
yeah.
All those
Yep.
in favor of electing Grace as chair.
Does she want it?
Are you willing to serve now?
I owe you all.
They
Yes, I'm fine.
they might
I'm
owe you
fine.
chocolate later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay.
She knows how to run a meeting.
Does that mean I start?
Okay, now you have,
So I'll hand it over to you, Grace.
no. First we have to elect her. All you did was close nominations. Now we've got to actually elect.
Oh, well, that was the last, I read the motion to elect.
Okay, but we didn't vote on that.
Yeah, we did.
We did?
Yeah, we had 3 motions altogether.
So is it appropriate to have a vice chair? I mean,
What I
As a
have on the agenda is a vice chair and a secretary. This is the only meeting that I'll be doing to have a template for someone to use.
okay. Well, then I would entertain a motion for nominating someone for vice chair. Don't all talk at once.
I nominate Sue Accardi.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any other nominations? All in favor of closing nominations, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, nominations have ceased, and so you're okay with that, Sue?
Oh, yes.
All right, so we have elected Sue Accardi as vice chair. Okay, and also for secretary. Someone who is going to be taking notes, then I take it? Are there any nominations for secretary? Somebody willing? Are you Karen?
I was gonna say I nominate Karen Lockwood. She's got a pen.
Yeah, she's got a pen. It's a good qualification. Is there a second?
I just wanted,
Don?
if I could, just to say, because the video record is the official record, so we're just looking for very basic, very rudimentary notes. You don't have to go crazy with verbatim notes, just so it
Okay.
won't be too burdensome.
Okay.
Basic.
And I'll give you a shell and walk you through it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Any other nominations? So a motion for nominations to cease.
So moved?
Okay, second. I'm not sure I'm doing this all properly since it's just the one person, but, okay, thank you, Karen, for serving as secretary as well. Appreciate that. Be sure we all bring a pen just in case she forgets, right? Okay.
I have a purse full.
Okay, so I do see that the next thing is a consideration of adopting remote participation policy, and I hope everybody got a chance to see that. And it looked like it's pretty much what some other groups have done.
It basically allows you the opportunity to use Zoom if you need to. If you don't opt into this, you can't use Zoom for your meetings until some other change at the state level happens.
And allows for the public as well
Yes,
to use
Yeah.
Zoom. Yeah.
but only if a committee member needs to use Zoom will the public be allowed to use Zoom.
Got it.
Oh.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept that policy?
Move to accept the remote participation policy.
And is there a
I'll
second?
second it.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I personally like to do in person and for as much as we can. I think the meeting after the meeting is where we get stuff done. But I think, if things change, by Zoom is certainly a good option.
Having
Or if
spent,
someone can't be here.
having spent the entire day in front of a screen,
Mhm.
I prefer in person as well, as much as possible. I appreciate everyone wearing a mask. Any other discussion? All in favor of the policy as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It passes.
If I
Okay,
could hand you that, Madam Chair.
thank you.
And there's a place for each of you to sign on the second page.
Okay, thanks. And that's the 23rd?
Yes.
Okay. So, how do we proceed? That was the easy part for some of you, anyway. What, you want to just kind of, everybody weigh in on what they think their thoughts are in terms of what we should do and how to approach it? Go ahead, Kathy.
Well, my thoughts are this, back when Kevin Oliver was talking about it, I was very surprised when he said some of the things that I would normally recycle are not recyclable. You know, for example, your Amazon boxes, the cardboard. It's not clean cardboard because you don't take the, it has the labels and all of that off. And I'm thinking, I know for the public safety building, we recycle a lot. And I guess I want to know, so we can educate the public first, what exactly is recyclable and what isn't. Because I think it's a waste if we're spending time and energy trying to recycle for stuff that then just gets thrown into the regular trash. But I think we also, I'd like to see the committee charged to look at the fiscal responsibility for the town. And what are we paying for recycling? Is it worth it? Does it make sense? I mean, I'd like to think that we're recycling so that the trash that I'm throwing away now is not there when my grandkids, you know, are older. And we fill up our dumps. But at the same point, if we can convert it, trash to energy and have it burned, which we're doing with a lot of it, does that make more sense than recycling? So I think, for me, that's where I'd like to see the committee go, to try to make some of those big decisions. And if we do decide, then how do we educate the public?
Go ahead.
Thanks, Grace. So I think it would be helpful for our conversation to maybe bring some folks in who are really conversant in the policy area, and maybe have a couple of presentations, maybe one on waste to energy, one on landfilling, or just something along those lines. I think that would be really helpful.
And I'm really interested in hearing from Nate about what's happening on the ground. I mean, I think he knows better than anyone in this town what is really going on and how much of the recycling is actually going into trash and what that's costing the town. So I mean, I really like to hear.
I think the best thing to do is get somebody in from Casella Waste and get a better picture of what's going on. I do know our household trash is trash to energy. And we just went into a contract with them on our disposal and handling of the recycling product. So anything that goes into the recycling side of stuff that doesn't get recycled goes back to MWAC, I believe, to trash to energy. But I think to get the facts, I think we should invite either Nate Chapman or somebody from his staff in to do a presentation to the committee. I think that'd be the best bet.
And I can get possibly John King, who's the executive director of Maine Waste to Energy, the former MWAC, or probably more likely somebody who's in the engineering department to talk about how that plant works and what they think of recycling or not. I guess I know because I brought the question up at the annual meeting, but we could get them in here to talk about their thoughts about whether we recycle or not and what difference it makes to the plant or not, and their thoughts on recycling in general. They do have an opinion of it. So I'm happy to set that up. If you want to do that, let me know the timeline and we can make that contact.
Yeah.
Mark Gendron for years was on the board, and so he's recently stepped down. So I'm now, I guess, no longer the alternate. I'm the representative. So I can do that.
And my question is, what are other towns currently doing? We're not the only town with the concern.
Right, and it has been discussed and I think even voted on in some other towns, so there's that as well. And, you know, we could do some research on that too, to see, you know, what other towns have done, and, you know, maybe if it's, you know, of interest or has any relevance, we could, you know, maybe benefit from some of that as well as we get into this. But, you know, I mean, Nate and I are here ex officio. We're here just to provide information and to set up whatever you might need for, you know, information.
Karen, other thoughts?
I agree with Kathy. That's why I was interested in joining this, same ideas as what you had. And I'm interested to hear what Casella Waste has to say.
I think they'd be the best ones to bring in because they are a contractor, and we just re-up the contract with them. I think that'd be a good deal.
If you want to, from the street view, you probably want Dave McNally.
Yeah, Dave's going to have the same perspective, I think, because our positions are different. Nate and I have a different position than what Nate Chapman would, or the gentleman from Trash to Energy. We just pick the stuff up and drive it over there. And then, what happens to it once it lands there is going to be they're going to have more information than Nate and I would have.
Right.
I would suspect that they'll have input on, you know, especially, you know, when the recycling was started, there was a market for the recycled product. That market has changed dramatically, either drying up or, you know, what's acceptable now, what's not acceptable. So it's getting input on that. You know, from an ultimate standpoint, there also is a solid waste policy that the town developed a number of years ago. It appears that it never got all the way through, so it's not out on the streets, but before the select board goes to revisit that and bring that back out, which defines, you know, what you know, how many trash cans are available, you know, or each house can have, or bring up and things like that. We're looking to get inputs on from the recycling side on what that is, so we can either integrate that in or take it out or whatever. So, you know, so it has implications as far as where those policies will go.
So basically, is this coming up because the cost has increased? Is that the bottom line? That's sort of
The cost is increasing, but it's also, I think you'll hear from Casella that the market for recycled stuff has dropped dramatically. The Chinese won't take it, and,
Right,
you know,
right.
and things like that. So the ability, you know, so what then happens to it if it gets collected but can't go out that way? It does just go back into the solid stream, or where does it go? So are we doing something because it was the right thing to do, but it no longer is the right thing to do because all we're doing is just putting extra back into the landfills?
Right, but you're right though. What happened was years ago we negotiated the revenue away for a stabilized cost, and now it's a cost to them and has been for some time. So they're coming back to us and saying we want money to handle your recycling because it's gone from being something that's a benefit to them to a detriment.
But not all of the materials.
Not
are
all the
being
material,
recycled.
but it's not what it was. It's a cost to them. It's a cost center more than a revenue, I think.
And
Their sorting costs and their handling costs are up higher than what their revenue coming in. And that's a moving target. That goes up and down depending on the market.
But part of the cost is that something's contaminated. If I'm putting
no,
stuff
it's
in there that shouldn't be in there, it's got to be sorted out and sent somewhere else. And so.
But I think if we had a perfect recycling product, I don't think it's the same. It's not the same market it was, and
Right.
it's still, you know, the cost of labor, the cost of everything is increased, and the markets to dispose of the material or to market the material are not what they used to be.
There's a lot of moving parts to it. Some of it's contamination, some of it's the raw cost of processing
Yeah.
the recycling material, how it's handled, where it goes. It's expensive.
Madam Chair.
Can I ask,
Sorry, go ahead, no, go ahead, Kathy.
do we have a flat rate that we're paying, or are we paying per ton?
We pay per ton on the disposal. We pay a flat rate on the curbside pickup. So recycling and trash is a flat rate.
So it doesn't matter how much we're recycling, if
No.
it goes up or
Well,
down?
yes, it does. Yes, it does. The recycling's on the tonnage too. They gave me a cap on the per ton handling cost of the recycling. and they've got metrics of what they're gonna get for revenue on the other side that comes off from that. So let's say it's $100 a ton, and they made $50 a ton this month, it only costs us $50 a ton to get rid of it. So,
And on the trash to energy side.
trash is just per ton, goes to MWAC, it's dumped in the incinerator.
Okay,
So,
so no matter where we put it, whether we put it in recycling or the trash,
that is
we're
correct,
still paying by the weight.
by the weight. So if you put all your recycling back into the curbside trash, MSW, that's gonna bring that amount up, not the cost to process, but because you're gonna have more tonnage, it's gonna cost more on that end. And the magic question is, does that offset the cost of recycling? Because you're still gonna have if you got rid of recycling altogether, you still got that product on the road you gotta pick up. So there's gonna be some added cost to the MSW curbside pickup, and you're gonna have cost to the tonnage, which is less than the recycling fee.
Okay.
So I'm not familiar with the waste to energy and what the environmental impact is from burning trash to convert it to energy. Does anybody know?
So, Madam Chair, if I might, it sounds like there's a lot of different issues that we need to learn a little bit more about. And I would suggest that maybe bringing in somebody who does work in the sustainability area. I could make a couple of suggestions. We discussed a lot of these issues when I was serving on the Environment and Natural Resources Committee for 4 years. And so there are some state guidelines, there's some statutory language around the waste hierarchy, which is, reduce, reuse, recycle, burn, landfill, etc. And I think it might be really helpful for our deliberations and our conversations to kind of understand what that cycle looks like and what some of the costs are. The other thing I'd like to mention, and I'll probably say this more than once, the legislature did pass a bill in this last session that is going to create a packaging stewardship program, and the one of the big selling points for me on that program was that the funding, that the money that's going to come into the system, it works sort of like the bottle bill. Let me know if I'm getting like too wonky here, but and so there's a fund that's created, and that's the solid waste fund for the state, and money going into that fund is going to be able to go back into communities to help defray the cost of recycling and responsible stewardship of waste, et cetera. So I think it would be really helpful for us to kind of understand what the future looks like as well, and where things might be going. Because I've heard that the recycling markets are starting to shake out a little bit, because as happens, because this is what we do, right? In America, we see a problem and we figure out, people are innovating about how to use some of these things. So plastics are getting a little bit easier. Paper is moving again. So I think understanding what that whole landscape is could be really helpful for planning purposes.
I wanted to ask you about the timeline of implementing that law. I don't know if you know off the top of your head. Or we can
Off the
find
top
that
of
out.
my head, I don't, but I can find that out
Okay.
pretty
I mean,
quickly.
and even so, I'm sure it would take quite a while.
Yeah, I
in
mean,
terms
they
of
have to go
packaging
through-
actually changing and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, they have to go through rulemaking and all
Yeah.
of that, but I think implementation begins in the not too distant future.
Because that certainly weighs into if it's going to be, 5 years, then
Yeah.
it may not be something that really is going to help a whole lot just yet, but
But
anyway.
I think one of the biggest items that can come out of this group is the education side.
Yeah.
Because what you have right now is you have people that think they're doing the right thing. And in some cases they are, in some cases they're not. And, if we can educate them towards what's right, what's wrong, what can work, that also drives you know, it may drive that to, okay, we're gonna have a smaller content of recycled, so a bigger content of regular trash, but it's now actually can go, you know, do something that way. You know, because what you want, you know, the worst thing you can do is have people think they're doing something that's helping when it's not. And a lot of times it's just because, you know, yeah, it says on the bottle it's, you know, it's recyclable, but what you don't realize is because there's something in it, it's not. You know?
Yeah, and the different plastics. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not all plastics. It's
Yeah.
1, 2, and 5. At
And-
least that's my understanding, but who knows if that's still accurate.
Yeah, because I know back in the day, back when they did the original recycling group, they sent out a lot of
Mhm.
different
Yeah.
flyers and things like that on here's what, you know, here's what can go in this and here's what can't go in here, and over time things change, people forget, and you know, so I think one of the big issues is the education side as well.
And the whole single sort, I think, made it easier to
Yeah.
just toss everything in and not
I
really
think
think
when they
about it.
went to single sort, I think the intent was good,
Mhm.
but as Grace said, that that's been awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We picked up 2 today. Our recycle truck refused it. And of course, just in timing, the recycle truck got behind the trash truck, so it got left behind. I'm not really sure where anybody came up with the thought that what we picked out of those trash cans was recyclable, but like you said, they thought they were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
It was- But we've seen a lot of that since we've gone to the single sort recycling.
Okay.
No, and, but a lot of the plastic, because we've lost the market, you know, for this, everything is stamped with recyclable. And I think that's part of the motive of fossil fuel companies that really are the ones that pushed for recycling back in the 80s, because they just want to produce plastic, and they're going to want to continue to produce plastic as people use, you know, the fossil fuels start becoming diminished with gasoline and all that. They're just, so everything's stamped recyclable, but most of it is, there's no market for it. And I think that's where, I think we're just like not, you know, we just don't understand. That's pretty much it. There's probably 2 plastic containers that are recyclable. So really the issue is, you know, not for us as a community, but overall is, you know, eliminating single-use plastic. I mean, that is really where the future needs to go, and the energy needs to go into that, getting rid of single-use plastic. And maybe this legislation will help with companies that will start to, you know, package their products in things that aren't plastic, and that, so that'll be very helpful, and that's the way to, you know, go down the road, but most of what we have is probably going to Southeast Asia now, and it's all getting dumped into the ocean. You know, our stuff is polluting everywhere around the world, and it's just, it's sad. And we all think we're doing the right thing, we're just, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
So
there's
that,
good
that
stuff
isn't,
going.
go ahead, I'm
Oh, I
sorry.
was gonna say, there's good stuff going on around reduction of plastic in, for instance, Poland Springs working on bioplastics, and they've reduced the amount of plastic in their containers, and I think it's expensive for them too, so I think there's a lot of.
I won't bring it next time.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a pretty complex system, and I mean, I know for me it helps to understand kind of the big picture before I start to figure out what the best path is.
So it
And-
makes sense to figure out who you want to invite to your first meeting. It sounds like you're going to have some listening sessions to start out.
Yeah, and so probably the biggest challenge of everybody in this room is figuring out how to schedule something like that, you know?
Maybe it makes sense, Jessica talked about the state having some guidelines and some strictures and some, you know, requirements and so forth. Maybe it starts out to finding out what it is we're required to do, or it's suggested we might do.
Okay,
What it is that the state would like to see us do.
okay.
That makes sense to
Can
start
you
out with
kind of
that.
Bring that information?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to either see if we can get someone from DEP to come in and talk about,
Okay.
or, you know, maybe, you know, I don't know. Yeah, I think we could probably figure that out and get someone from their sustainability department in here to tell us what their perspective is.
Okay.
And it looks like the first report due to the legislature on this particular product stewardship bill is February of 2023. So I think that's a good.
Would it be possible if we had speakers come in that they could Zoom in to this meeting, and if it was a hardship for them to come here, if they're coming from, up north, or is that a possibility?
I don't know what the policy said about speakers coming in and presenting. I don't recall that it said that, but the public can't Zoom in unless
Yeah,
one of us has to Zoom
Yeah.
in. But certainly speakers could Zoom in. Is it allowed in the policy or no?
It
Yes,
isn't.
they can, speakers can come in, why not?
Speakers can
Zoom.
come in, not Zoom.
Oh, right, speakers come in,
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, unless they can't get here. I think that's something the committee would want to talk about.
I guess I misunderstood. I would assume we'd invite people to come in and present in
Yeah.
person.
yeah, but I was thinking by video, I think it might be easier.
I think if you needed to hear from someone, and it was something that the committee more or less was required to hear or needed to hear to do what you need to do, then that might pass the straight face test to meet the policy.
Well, I guess, or if you wanted to hear from somebody because of geography, it would be inconvenient for them to come, then that would be fine. And I guess if you did it by Zoom, then you would have to open it up to anybody else by
public as well.
Zoom, and that's fine too.
Yes.
So I don't see a big issue either way, but I think most of the people, if you're coming from Augusta, then you're gonna come in person. If you're one of the industry people, I mean, the people that we would have from Maine Waste would be coming from the Auburn area, presumably. The Pine Tree, Casella people, their headquarters Scarborough, so they're coming from somewhere in southern Maine probably, right, Nate?
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are local people, but, I mean, we can take it one at a time and see how it goes, right? Or if somebody, and there are people who are going to be COVID shy who may not wanna come.
Right.
So if they say, I don't want to come for whatever reason, then maybe that's a Zoom thing, and then it's open to the public, right?
Yeah.
Zoom. So I guess we have to take it one by one, but that's the policy. That's where the policy comes in.
So again, the difficulty is contacting those people and finding a time that they're all able to attend. Any thoughts on that? Dawn, you said you'd reach out to John King, you said?
Well, I'd ask John King. He may or may not be the guy who comes. He's the executive director of Maine Waste. But I just thought it might make sense to start out with, what's the legislative and, legal framework and state guidelines, and what is it the state says we're supposed to do, and then we can go from there. I don't know what the next one is, but I mean, that's just my idea. We can start out with however you like it.
Other thoughts? Go ahead.
Thank you. So is it possible that we might think about when we're going to meet and get us on some sort of timeline, and then we know when we're going to be here, and then invite folks to come into a particular meeting, and maybe even have more than one presentation at one meeting if the meetings are a challenge to figure out when everyone can be here.
What day is it? Thursday?
Thursday.
Is Thursday, I mean, it depends for me, so, but I would work around it certainly.
What's the open calendar, what's open dates on calendars look like? 'Cause I mean,
Thursdays, there are no meetings
Okay.
normally, so
Yeah, because
Thursdays.
Tuesdays are
Yeah.
usually select board, school board,
Zoning board.
zoning board, so,
Wednesdays, planning board and school board.
yeah. And Fridays are right out.
Yes.
So, do we want to aim for a month from now, or is it even too soon?
I think we need to.
I think so.
I agree.
Madam Chair, would you like to choose for instance, always do it on the fourth Thursday, the third Thursday, or do you want to be that specific?
What works for people? My schedule is not that regular, that it's always the fourth Thursday that I'd be available, but certainly some of the
Well-
things I could move around it, but does that work for other people?
The fourth Thursday of November is Thanksgiving,
Yes.
and then the fourth Thursday of December is 2 days before Christmas.
Mhm.
And you
So-
know this so quickly, my gosh. Okay.
Maybe the third might work better?
I think pick Thursday and then pick the Thursday that works.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I think for planning purposes, I can, if I know ahead of time that I need to be somewhere, then I can make sure I don't put something on my calendar at that time, as much as possible.
Well, I think it would be wise to wait a month for the next meeting to try to get somebody who's available to come. So if we aim for October 21st
Mhm.
and have hopefully somebody from, you said from sustainability?
Yep.
You know, if you're gonna do the state, I don't know if this is possible, Jess, but maybe you could get a couple of different state people, you think?
I have a couple of thoughts, and with the indulgence, I would say that the sustainability person at the Natural Resource Council of Maine is extremely knowledgeable about these issues, and then I know that they work closely with a couple of different folks at DEP, and there's a hierarchy there, and so there might be one or two people who could really be helpful, and would be a question of
Yeah.
who is closest and who could make the trip.
Yeah, I'm just thinking for the most bang for our meeting buck, you know, if we could do a, you know, maybe if we could do a couple in
Yeah.
the same area each
Mhm.
meeting.
So in addition to what Jessica just said, what are you thinking, Don?
No, I think if we had a couple of speakers in a particular topic area each monthly meeting, I mean, I don't know how long you're thinking about meeting, but if we,
3, 4 hours?
no, not that many probably. Not that
To midnight.
many. Two, you
You want to
know.
get this done?
Well, I don't know, I mean, I mean, you may not always need
Yeah.
that many.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like when we talk about the industry piece, you know, maybe we have Casella and somebody from Maine Waste the same night.
Right.
Yeah, yes, no
You know,
need to
so
stretch
rather than
this
drag this thing
forever.
out for months and months and months,
Yeah.
you know, so, just a thought.
No, I totally agree with that too. I didn't know if you met somebody else on the 21st.
Oh, no, I'd leave that to
Okay.
Jessica to pick the best people from the state, I don't know.
Okay. Well, why don't we do that? And meanwhile, I don't know if, I'm glad to check with some surrounding towns and see what they're doing if
Yeah,
you
that would
want
be,
to as
and we
well,
might,
Jen.
that night, we might have 2 or 3 people from
Okay.
surrounding towns, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I'll see what I can find out.
But on the night where we do the, you know, the industry, Nate can get in touch with Casella and I can talk to Maine Waste, and so that'll be that night.
And so,
So that would probably be Nate Chapman and probably, hopefully John King.
let's see, November 18th is then a month after the 21st. Does that work? Thursday, November 18th? You want to go ahead and aim for that for some people from,
Yeah, I'd have to check with them,
Yeah.
that's fine, I'll make it work on my end.
So November 18th for that one? Yeah.
So you're gonna send me a,
Oh,
thank you.
And am I to assume that these would all begin at 6:30? Is that?
does that work for people? It does for me, but
Yeah.
is that okay with others? You think the people we're asking to come are okay with an evening?
I think they're used to it. I
Yeah.
do. I think it's
Okay.
something that they probably do.
I don't think so. Casella deals with municipalities, that's how we all work.
Okay. So you'll see about Casella, and then Don, you want to ask about
That's for
Maine
November.
Waste?
Maine Waste.
I'm sorry,
November
November 18th, I'm sorry.
November 18th, John King and then Nate Chapman, I
Yep.
guess. You're gonna talk to Nate?
Yeah, I'll find out from him who he wants to send. I would like to try to get somebody from the Casella Recycling, who's in charge of that over there, but I'll start with Nate.
Okay.
See what he recommends.
And,
And you want John King to talk about the impact of recycling on the plant and environmental issues?
anything that he thinks would pertain to the discussion about if we're continuing to recycle, what's the best way to go? What's needed to happen? Maybe something about what he foresees as a market. whatever, I'm not even sure what questions. I mean, we have time in October perhaps to think of questions ahead of time
Right.
to funnel to them.
Yeah, you might want to have questions in some sort of a direction, because I already know what he thinks about recycling.
Is that good or bad?
I can tell you, it doesn't matter. He doesn't care. The plant can handle it either way, and the plant will perform well either way.
Because they'll burn it if they don't recycle it?
He's okay if we don't recycle. The plant's designed to handle it, and it won't have any adverse impacts. It's really our choice.
Okay, so we'll think of some specific questions.
Yeah, you need to have some questions, but I think he's going to tell you that you won't. In his view, it's not going to have a significant impact on the environment because of the technology that's now been installed there. And they recover. You'll be amazed at how much of the material that they recover and recycle after they incinerate. They make a ton of money with metals, and actually you'd be surprised the amount of non-ferrous metal that goes through there, which actually has value. Nate just took a load of actually ferrous metal mostly, right? To the recycle facility, and got $650 from his little pile. So that actually has value, and that's what they do. They recover a lot of metal. They do quite a lot. So maybe to talk about what they do for recycling, that might be interesting. And so I think he actually likes the idea to some degree of what we would consider recycling getting into the waste stream for him, because he'll recover it and recycle it. Metals for sure.
Okay.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
when is our contract with these folks up for budgeting purposes?
Go ahead.
The extension.
We just signed a 5-year contract with Casella Waste, started this year, with a 2-year renegotiation at the end of it. That's just for curbside pickup. The recycling is a 3-year contract, and that stays the same for the first 3 years, and then it's a renegotiation on the end.
So we're already out to 2024, 2025,
Yes. On the
anyway,
recycling,
before our budget changes.
Yep.
Okay.
There's on the curbside pickup, there's a minimal increase every year. I think it's 1.5, I think, and I probably shouldn't comment on it, but I don't know off the top of my head. And the per ton on the MWAC, or waste energy, that's a moving target. That's a yearly. I believe that's yearly, isn't it? They go up every year on that?
No, they held it stable for a long, long time. They've just recently gone up just a little.
Yeah, but it's looked at every year though, right?
It's looked at every year,
Yes,
but they
that's
held
what
it
I
stable
thought.
forever.
It's
But
been stable.
so I'm gonna ask them about the impact, to talk about the impact of recycling and not on the plant, what they do for recycling, and the environmental factors as a starting point, unless you have something else. And then I would have questions. Oh, he's a very bright guy. He's an engineer and very bright guy, but he's definitely has a different view of it than the Save the Planet deal, for sure.
Could we also get from the town what it's cost us for the last 2 or 3 years from the finance director for the waste, and what it looks like for the next couple of years for both recycling
Well, that's
and...
in the budget already, so,
I know, but could we get it printed out, like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, I can-
We
I
can
can
pull those
actually-
we can pull that out of the budget sheets.
just so we're looking at that?
You're not gonna see any cost on the recycling until this year. They've absorbed the cost of the recycling, the handling of the recycling product in the contract. So we paid Pine Tree, it'd be a Casella, curbside pickup for trash and recycling. The only other cost before this year was our tipping fees to MWAC and Auburn. Everything else was, they absorbed it. So the only sample you're gonna have is the last 4 months.
Okay.
So do you still want that?
I would. I think it'd be good for the committee to actually see what the town is paying for this, so that if we do make decisions to get away from recycling or whatever.
Right, but okay, so we can get you the last 4 years of the recycling and the curbside cost, but as Nate points out, it's going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
moving forward, right?
At least that gives us a starting point in my mind
Okay.
to look at.
So Sue's somebody's keeping a list of all these asks. Okay. I kind of didn't come prepared. I'm running a business guy. Sorry.
Do you have a sense of, is just about every household putting out a recycling bin? Less than half? More than half?
I'd say around half, maybe a little bit more. You've got a couple of diehards out there, you've got a couple that don't bother. I'd be comfortable saying a little over half.
Almost your easiest way is when you go to work on.
Those
Well,
different days.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, Monday it's one part of the town, Tuesday it's, but you drive by and see what
Yep.
stuff's out at the curb there.
I can get a report on the tonnage of recycling I keep calling them Pine Tree, I'm sorry. Casella has tracked, since we went to zero sort, which was 10 years ago, I think now. They do track how many tons of recycling they take to their plant and how many tons. Obviously, we know what the tonnage is to the trash to energy, but the recycling was their internal deal. So, but they do have that. I can get access to that.
That would be interesting,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that'll show you
That
how
would be
many
really
tons we're
interesting.
recycling every year.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know if you want to muck up the water with this, but I think I can get what goes into their bulky waste facility in Naples. And I'm sure we could probably pull it from Casco too, what we see for bulky waste.
And we probably can get, I'm sure we can get the bulky waste that goes into main waste as well.
Correct.
That's where I go.
They do ask when you go in where you're from,
Yeah.
so they are
Right.
tracking where it's from.
Yeah, so and you can probably get the bulky waste that goes into Eco, you can get the bulky waste that goes, there's all kinds of bulky waste sites, and they all track it by town.
The bulky waste stuff is going to be the stuff that when you were talking the first part of the meeting about landfill, a very large amount of that goes to landfill. The bulky waste, that'd be building debris, shingles, tires, stuff that you can't recycle or don't throw in your household trash.
And although that's certainly part of the overall conversation, does that really impact the recycling to know that? I don't know.
It
I'm maybe not understanding
It
something.
used to, they used to use those bulky waste numbers in our recycling numbers for the state. Now, whether they do now or not, I don't know.
They would, had, Louise Lester did the report. Well, when I came, I did it for a couple of years, but Louise liked doing solid waste, and so she ended up doing the report, and it was a really onerous document, and it was very detailed, and they tracked every single thing. It was very comprehensive, and it depended on how you filled it out. Some towns, had one perspective on how they did it. Other towns, a different perspective, and we were very conservative in the way we did it, and hopefully accurate as we could be. But other towns took a different way of doing it and got better rates, and we were okay. I don't know if we ever really fully achieved the state's goals, but we were often close to them. And some towns looked like they were way off the map, way exceeding. And then there are towns that never even got in the foothills the way they should have been. So I worried and wondered about consistency in how the reporting was done. But the report itself was measured everything. He's right. I mean, everything you can imagine under the sun for the waste stream was in that report.
Okay, but does bulky waste impact in any way what you're recycling?
Financially,
Financially?
No.
But okay.
bulky waste in this town, you have to pay for it as an individual when it
Right.
goes out the door.
But back then it did. Back then
Back
it
then
did though,
it did,
because we
yes.
had to pay for it because
Okay.
we got rid of that. We put that on the. What was happening was we had the Casco site
Yeah,
and we were
yeah.
paying a fee, and people were, particularly commercial people, were taking advantage of the unlimited disposal, and the town was picking up the tab, and we found out that a dozen people were 70% of the stream.
But I guess I'm not making myself clear, or maybe I'm just still not understanding. I'm looking at Jessica, she was nodding. Maybe you understand what I'm trying to ask.
It doesn't
So-
affect anything today, other than
It
it's
doesn't.
part of the waste stream.
It really
Part of the
doesn't, it
waste.
really doesn't affect
The
what this
recycling
committee
per
is
se.
is
Okay, that's
looking
what
at.
I'm trying to ask. So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
we don't need the information, we don't need the information.
That's why I said I didn't want to, maybe I shouldn't have mucked up the
Yeah,
water.
'cause I mean,
Bring up
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
bulky, I mean,
it goes under the waste title, but it's not where
It's
this.
nothing we would be
not where the
recycling or
charge
not
here is.
It only it doesn't affect the cost, but the taxpayers are paying the cost. It's only if you want to understand everything under the sun with waste.
And the only reason I
Yeah,
brought it
it's-
up is we were talking about landfilling.
Yeah.
And we don't landfill here, we
Right,
trash to Energy Town.
okay.
So it was a big conversation about construction and demolition debris and how in-state and out-of-state waste is classified and whether it can go into the state-owned landfill. It's a very, very, very complex system and issue that the legislature is actually currently trying to grapple with.
If you want to
And
get a, if
we
you want to,
really don't want it.
The other place it could come into play though is when you, and this is where, you talk about the reports, is when you start making comparisons. We don't pay that, so if you're comparing us to somebody else and costs and so forth, then it could be important. But other than that, no.
I was thinking more in comparisons in terms of practices and policies, what are they doing?
if you want to get a good idea how wasteful our society is,
No, I'm sure we all
It's-
understand
yeah,
how
it's-
wasteful we are.
it's awful.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay. We got enough to go on for another month here and people understand what to,
I did notice in the RSU 14 Adult Ed, there is a class on recycling coming up. And I
What did I
believe
miss
it's
that?
free, it's a Zoom. So if you'd like, I'll send that out to the group. I believe it's in October. And if anyone wants to sit in on it.
A one-time class, one-day
Yeah,
class?
I think so, Sue.
I think that's like,
oh, I thought I looked at that whole thing real carefully. Thank you. I missed
And-
that.
while we're talking about education, I know I had emailed, but the Maine Recycling Resource Recovery Association has their annual conference and trade show at the
Rockport.
Samoset, which is,
Rockport.
yeah, right, in Rockport. Don can tell you how to get there.
Pardon me?
I said Don can tell you how to get there.
Yeah, I used to go to that a lot, yeah.
That's October 18th and 19th. And I'm gonna try to go. And so if anybody else is interested, maybe we can wrangle
An electric car.
oh, that's a good idea. I wonder where we could get one of those. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna try to go and I think it will be interesting. They also have a recycling competition sponsored by Casella, which I think is interesting. I don't know what that is.
Really?
But anyway, this is a lot of good information.
Who else, is there somebody else that can go? I can't.
I might be able to, depending. on
Well,
what
I'll
day.
see, and let me check, because there's a fee, but I don't know, we'll see if we can.
Well, if you'd like to go, the town will cover the fee and you can drive down in the electric car.
Thank you.
Well, if you haven't tried it, you've tried it.
I've tried it, it's very nice.
Okay, that's great. If you could go, that would be really good. I mean, sure we could cover this thing, too.
So,
And if they end up doing it virtually, but they're still doing it in person,
I've heard so far that they're doing it in person.
there's a lot of things that are going virtual. But if it's virtual, if you get wind of that, if you would just share that, because sometimes
Absolutely,
people
let the
can attend
committee know,
different
sure, yeah.
sessions. Okay.
I have a logistical question, I'm sorry, just
Yep.
for process. Sue, is there a time certain that we need to put out an agenda? Just figuring out like who can come for the next meeting and all of that. What is the deadline for letting whoever I need to let know about who's coming?
Well, I'll let Karen set her own deadlines, but I'll tell you and Karen what I do with the select board.
Okay.
And that's the Friday before their meeting. I put out an e-packet. The Tuesday before the meeting, I set the agenda with the chair. So, given this meeting is on a Thursday, those times will probably still work. I'm not sure you'll really have a packet to send out, but there may be times when you have hard information or electronic information you'll want to send to the committee.
and should they have something like that, staff would help with that.
Yes.
So a base agenda would be, would they send
Something
it?
that Karen would do. Mhm.
Something she would do. And so would she send that to the town office to post?
Yes,
You'll go over all that with her?
yes, I will.
But if they had an e-packet and detailed materials, we would do that.
Yes.
We would help with that.
So for instance, in October, if you're going to be meeting on October 21st, I believe you said, then the agenda would be set on the 12th, and on the 15th, any packets or information. And since you're
Yeah.
going to have a speaker, unless the speakers had something they wanted to get out ahead of time.
Right, but the agenda
it
wouldn't
probably wouldn't be.
look like our agendas. It would probably look more like this agenda. It would be very simple.
Yeah.
The only other thing, when speakers are coming in, they've got certain requirements here if they want to do a PowerPoint or things like that. So that, you know, and I think Sue can get to Grace and to
Mhm.
Karen what those requirements are, because Kevin's pretty picky on what goes through the systems.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
And we'd like to know in
Not that he's
advance.
trying to limit, but
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
need to
just
know in
make sure that
advance.
everything gets in there is clean and it can
Yep.
get formatted so that, especially so that it can go out on the feeds.
Okay.
And compatibility, we'd like to know I think that's the big thing, what's coming in for equipment, right?
Yes. Mhm. But on the whole, people would bring in PowerPoint presentations. Those are fine. They can have them on a thumb drive, and we have a dedicated PC here to deal with them, so. But it's just good to know that ahead of time so we can let the videographers know that they're also going to be dealing with posting it up here, posting it on the feed as it goes out for live, and to be able to capture it in the archive tape.
Okay.
Mhm.
But are you gonna be here then, Sue, for these meetings, or no? No, that's what you had said initially, right?
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, Karen will be taking minutes, and you don't have to sit here to take minutes.
Okay.
Mhm.
But as far as if there's something I mean, a PowerPoint note to run, the person's just gonna be able to do that themselves. I mean, the equipment is all just here for them to
Well,
use?
the
or-
videographer will be here. and they'll be able to help them.
Okay, all right.
And once again, the video record's the official document, so if
Yeah.
everything goes haywire with minutes, the video is the record.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking in terms of running the PowerPoint and being sure all that runs smoothly, there will be somebody here to do that, if not, okay.
Well,
okay.
running it, the person doing the presentation normally runs it themselves.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
They would just sit up here.
And the most important thing to capture is, of course, the decisions.
Yes. And any task that people have for the next bit,
Right,
especially if you need town staff to do something.
right.
Okay.
All right,
What else?
we could ask the public for comment.
Yeah, I see. That's the public
Nathan,
for
you know,
comment.
well, you're not
Good.
public.
I'm good.
He's not public.
Okay, and, recycling committee comment.
It's a good start.
We've got a
Yeah.
lot of
Got a little bit to learn here. Okay,
All right,
thank you all. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Kathy? Second?
Second.
Many seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Right?
Okay.